Excel 2016, Module 9, Part 3. We're going to be continuing with our amortization schedule. We're going to be looking at the cumulative interest payment function and the cumulative principal functions. These allow us to calculate the total interest payment and the total principal payment over multiple payments. So in our example, we're going to look at how much in each category we paid every year. So let's get back into our workbook. Now, one of the things that I like to do is to enter a sum function in each of these three boxes at the bottom. So we previously calculated the interest payments for each quarter and the principal payments for each quarter, as well as the total payments. By adding the sum at the bottom, I can see that the total principal payments in fact do equal the $400,000 loan. I can see the total interest payments over the life of the loan as well as the total cash outflow. So now I'm going to create the cumulative formulas. Now, one of the reasons I added these totals was so that when I calculate these totals of the 5 years, I can make sure that they agree. It gives me a double check so that I can ensure that I'm entering the formulas correctly. So we're going to start out by calculating the cumulative interest for the first year. And you'll notice that right above the formula in rows 34 and 35, I have the payment period that starts the year and the payment period that ends the year. I can use these in my formula in order to calculate the cumulated over each year. So we'll start out in B36. We'll go to Financial. And you're going to find Cumulative IPMT. You will have to go all the way up to the top and select some of the pieces of information from this basic loan information that we had at first. You will also have to pay attention to absolute versus relative referencing because we are going to be copying these formulas. So the rate is going to be up here in D5, and I do want that to be absolute. When I copy the formula, I do not want that to move. The same way with the number of periods, it's in F5 and it needs to be absolute. Also, my present value in A5 must be absolute. And notice again we have the scrolling bar. So we're going to come down here to the bottom and it says what is the starting period or the starting payment number for this period that you're trying to add up. I want to add up from payment 1 to payment 4. And then we come down to type, and again type has the same meaning. It has to do with the timing of the payment. However, Excel does require you to put a 0. in the cumulative interest and the cumulative principal formulas. I do not know why they were inconsistent. My guess is a different person wrote that part of the program and they just made it different. So you have to put a type there of 0 if it is 0, or you will get an error message. It won't even calculate. So make sure you put the 0. When we enter that formula, you can see that it is coming up with the total interest that we paid in the first year. So let's go ahead and do the total principal. We're going to go up to financial and scroll down and find cumulative principal. Now again, we have to go all the way back up to the top, and we're going to find the rate, which we need to be absolute, the number of periods, which we need to be absolute, and the present value, which we need to be absolute. Once again, we're going to scroll down to the bottom. We're going to say I want it from payment 1 to payment 4. Now these last two I don't want to be absolute, because when I copy the formulas from column B to column C, I want it to look at payments 5 through 8. And when I copy it from C to D, it should look at 9 to 12. So it does need to move. You want to leave those two relative. And again, the 0 is required. So then let's take a look here. And we're going to say for this first formula, I'm going to go all the way up to the top, and I'm going to start with my, oops, I forgot the equals. Okay, so I'm going to say it's equal to my very beginning loan amount. And what I want to do is I want to subtract the principal payments that year so I can see what's left. But since the payments are negative, you need to add. Again, you should make sure the number is going down. So let's copy our cumulative interest and principal formulas over. Whoops, I missed one. Now, I'm going to do an auto sum in both of those cells. So I'm going to highlight both of them, hit auto sum, and it fills in. What I should see is that my total interest equals my total interest. My total principal equals my total principal. Now let's take a look at moving this formula forward. I can say that it starts out with the principal that I owed at the end of last year, and I add to that the amount that I paid because it's negative. If your principal remaining starts increasing, you know you have the formula wrong. Always look at your answers to make sure they make sense. So I showed you our first checks and balance. The totals here are equal to the totals here. I'm going to go back and do the format painter. There we go. And they are. And then the other thing you can do is come up here and look at the end of year 1. This is my balance. So then if I look at the end of year 1, sure enough, that is what it says. The end of year 2, it should be 251,812, and as you can see, it is. So then you can look at the end of year 3, the end of year 4, and the end of year 5. So you can double check that your formulas are all working correctly by double checking these and double checking these. Now we would want to see that this information would then flow into our income statement and our balance sheet, and so we'll be looking at those a little bit later. I'm going to save our work, and then if you come back, we will be looking at our income statement and depreciation.